So sometimes it's not that you have the wrong person, it's that the expectations are too intense. But if we move from that, sometimes we have the wrong person. We have somebody in sales that's really good at selling themselves and telling you what you want to hear. And you hire them and you really wanted them to go out and do business development. They're kind of what would be called a hunter, but they prefer building relationships and they don't want to go out and meet people and they want to just grow the relationships they have and they don't want to cold call. They don't want to put themselves out there. And that's okay. Like, I'm not judging that. It's just you hired the wrong person. And so a lot of times we've got people that can do a job, but they're in the wrong job. And when you think kind of hunter farmer, you've probably had these experiences if you're running a sales team. You thought this person was really great at talking to customers. Yeah, they are, but you better bring them the customers to talk to. If you're relying on this person to go out and find them, they're not going to do it. So those are some of the things. Also, what I typically find with the team is the sales leader isn't holding the space or the meeting to bring out the best in people. Like when I run a sales meeting, we start with inspiration. Like we are there to inspire this group. Then we move to knowledge share. How do we learn from each other, right? And then I usually kind of play into some sort of action. How do we get into action in this meeting? And then how do we create accountability? And so if you're running meetings where people are showing up late, they're not turning on their Zoom camera, then you're probably not running high impact meetings. So how are you going to have a high impact team? So a lot of it gets back to, you've got this group of people that kind of play this individual sport, but also can work really well if they're seen as a team. And we're just not creating enough structure or clarity in maybe a job role. The tools, sales process may or may not be fully baked. And we might not be running effective meetings. We're not really bringing out the best in them. So a lot of times those are the things I go in to fix. And it doesn't mean you don't have a good team. It just means sometimes we need to go in and tinker with it and start to make some changes and get people to adopt and be part of the change.
Yeah, I've seen this in restaurants. You'll get a cook that kind of is like a bully and a brat and they take over everything. And then in regular organizations, I've seen that salespeople can do the same thing. If you get like a prima donna or someone that seems to be good at sales, I guess if you don't watch out, your organization can become hostage to them. Have you seen that? And if so, what do you do?
Yeah, that is really astute. A lot of times if we look at a sales team, you might have one or two lone wolves. They're really great at what they do. They kind of set the rules. They do whatever they want to do. They don't show up to the meetings and they're phenomenal salespeople. And if you have a culture where you can have a bunch of lone wolves and you're okay with just the outcome and they're not burning bridges and they're not tweaking your production team or your delivery team and they're not tweaking the marketing team and you can live with it, then hey, lock it down. Cool, it works for you. But if you have a business where you're really trying to bring teams together and scale, kind of like how we began that conversation earlier, like if you really want to surrender to team and strategy, then I'm going to tell you probably need to start to find a new home for your lone wolves that are killing it, or you need to start to have some real conversations to see if they're willing to play ball and what that would look like. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately when you come into a team, a sales team, you got to make sure they're playing well with others and representing your brand and trying to solve things as a team, because most people that run a sales organization want their team to be able to scale. And if you don't have systems and processes or a code of conduct, a way we do things, it's going to be really hard to scale. And yeah, it's going to eventually feel like can be held hostage by 2 or 3 people, because guess what? Every time you hire other salespeople, there's not enough of a process or a system or a team to support them, and they fail. And here you are in the kind of that hamster wheel again, where you just feel stuck. But that's the thing. I'm running into that a lot.
Starting to think, I don't want these superstars. I'd rather just have like people that are decent, that will follow the procedures and the systems and all that. I don't want prima donnas. I don't want superstars. I'd rather have just like average people that do a decent job. Just, you don't have to fight with them and deal with them and their egos and all that stuff.
I agree. I mean, again, I'm not saying all your superstars are lone wolves. I'm just kind of calling out that if you can have a culture that supports one another, processes that people follow, even if it's 80%, and in general, you can see that people's close rates are pretty uniform across the team. The way they work is relatively uniform across the team. I mean, people are still individuals, and I support that, but that's going to get you down the field further. You think about sports teams that win, and, very rarely is it where they have one superstar and they always throw the ball to that superstar and that's how they win the playoffs. Sometimes that happens, sure, but it's usually there's a combination of either people that support that superstar or a combination of multiple people on that team that all are at a high enough level that when you bring them together, it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. It's like a 1 + 1 = 3.